Okay guys, welcome to another video. In today's video, I just wanted to talk about this rifle. This is a PCP air rifle, Umerex Notos, N-O-T-O-S. It's pretty new to the market. The main reason I picked it up, I just thought it looked pretty cool, short overall length, pretty lightweight. A lot of the PCP air guns you see on the market, there's nothing wrong with them, they're just really large, and I wanted something more for just like plinking, not necessarily hunting. But this thing's lightweight, short, and I did make a couple modifications. We are going to shoot this. I just wanted to run through some of the things I wish I would have known before picking this up. Not necessarily bad things or good things, just some observations. After that, we will shoot it. I just got done. The reason the scope caps are off, I had another scope on here, and then I just got done zeroing this one. I still have that target down range. I do need to fill this, and I wanted to fill it on camera. So we'll get to that in a second. First, the modifications I made. This is a 3D printed lower, if you will, similar to like an AR lower. It's made out of a glass-filled nylon, and it's made by a company called Buckrail. The company, they make a lot of 3D printed accessories for a lot of popular pellet rifles. And then I also got this M-LOK handguard. The reason I got the M-LOK handguard is after shooting this for a little bit, I realized mounting a bipod would be really cool. So it has M-LOK on the bottom. What I also noticed after getting it is it's flat on the bottom versus the tube is round. So if I want to just rest this on, something to stabilize it without a bipod, it being flatter is nice. I also want to mount a flashlight because this might be used for kind of like pest control, and a lot of times that's probably going to be at night. So having the M-LOK, I can mount, a flashlight or maybe a laser. You can mount a hand stop, vertical foregrip, bipod, and even if you don't mount anything, it just makes it more comfortable to hold, and I think it kind of just makes it look pretty cool. I was concerned about the durability, but as you can see, that's some thick stuff. I thought it was kind of, this handguard I thought was going to be kind of chintzy, but it's pretty stout. I was surprised, and it just grips onto the air tube. You can still access the air port of the rifle, but yeah, M-LOK. And then this, one of the reasons I got this was eventually I want to get a folding stock adapter just to make it that much smaller. But you can see the standard lower uses a buffer tube similar, but due to various reasons, which I'm not quite sure, it doesn't use a standard sized AR-15 buffer tube. It's either a little bit bigger or smaller. I think it's a little bit larger. So this lower does a couple things. It allows you to run a standard buffer tube, possibly adding a folding stock. You can see this is a Magpul CTR stock. Nothing against the stock that comes with it. It's just I prefer the Magpul CTR. It would be better if it was in black, but it is what it is. I just had this laying around. The other thing it does is it lowers the buffer height. Many people who are familiar with like the M4 platform knows that the buffer tube is like perfectly in line with the bore, which means you need to mount your scope higher. I like lower mounted scopes, so this dropping that buffer tube, these scope rings I just had laying around, don't know the exact height, but it's like the perfect height in relation to this. The factory stock, these scope rings were a little too low, so I had to really push down, and it just wasn't comfortable shooting. The scope, we'll get to the rifle in a second. I guess I'll just walk through what's on it. This is a loopholed 2.5 power scope. A lot of people, this isn't what you'd see on a pellet rifle. A lot of people like to mount the big old telescopes that you can watch the stars and stuff with, 20 power, 30 power. I think that's a little excessive. This is a 2.5 power. I'm mainly shooting this, the target down there is 25 yards away. I think the farthest I've shot it was like 30 or 35 yards away. This isn't like a long range precision gun. 2.5 power. Some people might say if you're shooting small game, you want to zoom up on it. The thing is, a lot of small game is really quick, so you'd have to actually get it in your sights before being able to shoot it. And with those really high power scopes, it's just really difficult. So this 2.5 power works surprisingly well. I might in the future get like a 4 power, but for now this works pretty well. You can see it's mounted forward. It kind of looks like a scout scope. That's because the eye relief of this scope is quite long, which is beneficial for a couple reasons. The main reason is I wear a baseball hat a lot of times, so I can get down here and you can see that's like perfect right now, you know, so maybe that's like 6-7 inch eye relief. But then also if you get prone, you're going to end up closer to the scope and it still works there. So I really like that combination. It's a really lightweight scope. So talking about the gun, the specs you can find online, the overall length and all that, it's super light, super compact. As it sits right now, it only weighs 4.5 pounds, so it's really light, really handy. So the first accessory, the factory magazine, I don't have with because frankly I didn't find it works that well, so I actually threw it away. Cycling it, if you don't know, it's a side loader. It's kind of like a bolt action. When you pull the lever back, you know, it pulls this kind of firing pin back, and then once the mag's in there, it just pushes the pellet into the chamber. I wasn't actually, before purchasing this, I wasn't quite sure how that action worked, but that's how it works. It's pretty easy. Some people might want the lever on this side. That's not an option, so you just have to kind of get used to it being on that side. But it's pretty smooth. With the factory mags, what was happening is it was like chewing up the pellets, so you had to really wiggle this and finagle it and then finally get it in. And I think what was happening is it was chewing up the pellets as it was getting it into the chamber, which it was kind of a hassle, and it just made it annoying to shoot. Plus it only comes with one magazine. So I found these on eBay, of all places. I normally don't buy stuff on eBay, but they shipped from Canada. If I can remember the name, I'll leave a link to them. I got them in orange because you can see how small they are. I was afraid dropping them. They also make black and maybe a couple other colors. I was afraid dropping them, they'd be hard, or they'd be easy to lose, so I got orange. They also make a 10 round magazine. It's a little bit bigger, but you may not be able to fit it in there with certain scopes. So I just stuck with the 7 pellet. These chamber a lot easier. They're a lot easier to load, and I got 3 of them, so you can actually shoot for a little bit instead of shooting 7 rounds and then having to reload. Doing it again, I probably should have bought like 5 or 6. The reason 5 or 6 is what I've found is at maximum air capacity, you get about 40 shots. These are 7, so that's 21 shots right there. And then normally I can refill all 3 of them and shoot 3 more, so that would be 42 rounds. So I should have just got 6. I got 3 to start with. I might get 3 more. Filling it, I'm really new to PCP air guns. I've read a lot about them. So some of you guys might be watching this and it's just common sense, but this is more to the people who don't know about PCP air guns. The difference between a PCP and like a spring piston break action pellet rifle is this has a built-in air tank. And I don't know why they designed it like this, because it's difficult to show you without pointing the muzzle at the camera, but that's the dial that lets you know the pressure of the tank. And what I found is the first time it ships empty. And what I found is it takes a long time to fill up by hand. The max pressure on here, it says 3625 psi. And what I found is if you don't let it get below like 1800 psi, it fills up a lot quicker. So going from that 3600 psi down to about 1800 psi, you get that 40 shots. Below that, you're going to get really slow speed, probably erratic accuracy. So just don't let the air tank get super low before refilling it. I forget the capacity of the air tank, but again, it's in the specs. It's pretty easy to find. So really quick before shooting, I just wanted to top it off. It looks like it's at about around 2000 psi. And the biggest thing that held me back from this was getting an air compressor, right? Or a way to fill it. And I've heard like horror stories about these hand pumps. And the combination of the low tank capacity, this fills surprisingly quick. So the big thing to remember, I didn't know this, so it was a lot more of a hassle. Make sure you caulk it. If you don't caulk it, it won't fill. And what I do, point it in a safe direction. This is just a no-name 4 Uncle's high pressure air pump I got on Amazon. It has a quick detach, so you stick this. And again, I apologize if you already know this, but I didn't know a lot of this. A lot of the videos I watched, it doesn't actually show how to do it. So what you do is there's a plug on the back. Make sure that's tight. You'll see why that's there in a second. But you just stick it in there, make sure it's tight, and start pumping. And I think the last time I counted, it took about 60 pumps. Again, depending on the size of the tank on the rifle, it might take more. These air pumps, a lot of people are acting like it was a pain. If you're really light or lack strength, as it gets higher pressured, it might get hard to pump. But for most people, it really isn't that bad. So, it does have a dial. Can't see what that's at.
It's almost to the red.
So now all you do, we're pretty close. You can see that didn't take that long. So all you do now, if you were to pull this out, it would just spray tons of air, make a lot of noise. So you just open this, and then you pull this out. And that's all that's to it. Pause for a second.
Yep.
Okay, these are those mags I was talking about. I already have 2 loaded, but I figured I'd show the last one being loaded. If you've done it, it's all the same. If you've never done it, what I was doing is I was dropping them straight in. What happens is the tip was kind of getting caught when I rotated it. If you, I know it's going to be hard to see, but if you go past, then you just spin it, grab another pellet, and once you do it a couple times, it gets easier. And if you've done one, I mean, if you've used another brand, they're probably all similar. But if you follow the instructions in the manual, or the instructions, they overcomplicate it, like most things. So it might be better to either watch a video how to do it, or just do it yourself without trying to read the manual. So that's the magazine. It has a 22. Now, essentially, we are going to shoot this right now, but I'll just show you how easy. Like I said, I'm not trying to dumb this down. And a lot of people watching this might be new to PCP air guns. Every magazine's different, but this one has a little groove here, has a little matching groove on the mag, has a magnet. The single hole faces towards the muzzle, so you just kind of like line it up and drop it in, and it's in there magnetically. Now, that doesn't seem super secure, but so essentially it's charged, it's ready to fire now, and that pin, like, that mag can't come out. This might be obvious, but if you need to take the magazine out, pull the lever back. But it's ready to fire at this point. One thing I wanted to illustrate, because it's hard sometimes to quantify how loud a pellet rifle is, because I was watching reviews on a handful of different ones, and one video would say it's loud. The next video would say it's quiet. Well, but that's not that quantifiable. You know, loud compared to what? Quiet compared to what? So what I have is a staple gun. This is the only thing I thought of that might be similar in noise. This might possibly be louder than this. And I'm shooting at a piece of OSB 25 yards down range, which the pellet hitting that OSB is probably louder than the rifle firing. And we can fire some rounds just into straight dirt. So, ready to fire. I'll just shoot a couple rounds. So staple gun and then pellet rifle, and we'll see which one's louder. And I'm just going to shoot one-handed. Okay, so staple gun, pellet rifle. Staple gun, pellet rifle. Oh, sorry. Got carried away. So staple gun, pellet rifle. So I'd actually probably say the staple gun's louder. Some of the people were saying because of the short barrel, this is a louder pellet rifle, and it might be compared to others. I don't have much experience with pellet rifles in general, but I would consider this one pretty quiet. But again, you know, if you're comparing it to a 22, I think all pellet rifles are going to be quiet. If you're comparing it to other ones, it might be a little bit louder, but on the grand scale, they're all fairly quiet. So I'm going to shoot it a couple times, and then we'll go. Let me see that chair.
And go.
So if you don't have a bipod, sometimes you can just kind of redneck up something that works. So until I get a bipod, this Walmart special folding chair works pretty well. We're 25 yards away, sitting. Other videos go prone or have their rifle in a rest. I tried to do something most realistic to a situation you'd find yourself in. Again, this is only the accuracy of me. I'm trying to see, because I already have some hits downrange. I'll just shoot a couple times and we'll go down and take a look at the target. And on the last round, or on the last pellet, it doesn't let you charge it. It's kind of like a last round hold open. So I'll throw another magazine in. Just slides in easy, and then you charge it. So that was 21 rounds, and the video wasn't modified. A lot of the videos you see when people are doing accuracy testing, they clip out all the extra, so it looks like they're shooting fast and shooting good accuracy, but they're actually spending like a long time aiming. This was just informal, just putting the crosshairs on the target and pulling the trigger. It's a really fun rifle to shoot. So we'll go down there, take a look at the targets, and come back up here. Okay, so all these were from zeroing. It zeroed up really quick, and that last string of fire was actually this target. And for how quick I was shooting, I mean, the bulk of them, there might even be some pellets in there. I can feel a couple pellets in there. Except for a couple of these, like that's a pretty small group for just not precision shooting. It's not a high power scope. I didn't have a bipod. I didn't have like a mechanical gun vise, if you will. So, I mean, for me, that's decent accuracy. For other people who are really into pellet rifles, who like chase for the smallest group, that might be horrible. But for the application of this gun, which is more like plinking and maybe pest control, that's pretty small group. And then you can see these, like that's a really good group. That's like a 7 round, what is that, 3 or 4 rounds. So it shoots really tight. Now, I've only used one type of pellet. I didn't even talk about the brand of pellet. I just found them, and they happen to be 22 caliber. I didn't buy them, so I haven't hunted around. I haven't bought tons of pellets, but this gun shoots really accurate. Now, a couple applications for this before closing the video out. For a lot of people in the firearm who own firearms, pellet rifles on the surface don't make a lot of sense until you start to think about, if you live in the suburbs or possibly the city, you might have 22s and ARs and Glocks and all that stuff. That's great, but can you actually use those for pest control without getting arrested? In a lot of like big cities, there's laws called like unlawful discharge of a firearm. Yeah, a lot of people do it, even if it's technically illegal. Do people get charged with that? Maybe not too often, but this legally isn't considered a firearm. So I mean, technically you couldn't get charged with unlawful discharge of a firearm. 2, it's really quiet, so you can practice your accuracy like early in the morning on a weekend. You don't want to wake up your family. You could go out on the deck and you can practice shooting. Doesn't make any noise. Maybe you're too busy to go find places to shoot. The other thing is the cost. The pellets are really inexpensive compared to even 22. But I'm going to do some follow-up videos on this in the future, but for now, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Go back to my homepage, watch my current videos. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe.